Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us today on China Daily Speak Talk. You have been here for almost 6 months, and so my first question is, as a almost newly assigned ambassador to China, what's your impression of this country so far?
Well, first of all, thank you very much really for coming to our embassy, and thank you very much to yourself as well as to your crew for this interview. Well, indeed, as you have said, almost 6 months have passed since my arrival here, and it is not my first time to be in China, but the first time as a diplomat, as an ambassador here. And of course, the scope, the whole landscape of our bilateral relation is the focus of my work as well as the work of my collaborators, the colleagues from this embassy. And we certainly see a lot of room of improvement. If I just offer the usual diplomatic generic statement saying that the general relations between Slovenia and China are friendly and without any open issues. And in that we have to look deeper and find out the initiatives, find out new ideas in how to develop our relations further. And thanks to a number of the initiatives which have been launched by your government, by the Chinese government, we see that there is indeed a great degree of the improvement in those relations. And with my colleagues here at the embassy, we are committed to follow that and to pursue that track, that we get more visibility of Slovenia here in China, in this big country, as well as the impression of the modern 21st century back home in Slovenia.
See, China and Slovenia relations dates back to 1992, actually, which is a pretty young relationship. So we have gone through major achievements so far. How do you evaluate such a relationship and its future as well?
No, certainly, we are extremely thankful to the Chinese government that, as China back in 1992 was the first Asian country which has opened an embassy in Slovenia and dispatched an ambassador. Since then, China, of course, has a special place in our foreign policy. And now, if I speak about the 21st century, when China has become now the major economic power and is becoming more prominent and more exposed in the international multilateral world of affairs, we do pay a special attention to it. We are thankful for a number of the high-level exchanges of the visits that we have had in both directions, and we are looking forward to promote that and bring it even up to a new level.
I see. Last year, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang initiated this China and Central Eastern Europe Summit in Suzhou, yes. Yeah. And this year it will take place in the Baltic states, in Riga, right, actually. So what role do you think Slovenia will play in this summit again, and what's your expectation for this new summit?
Well, of course, the initiative that we codenamed it 16+1 is an extremely welcome initiative for Slovenia, because it does offer us, as an EU member country, perhaps as a NATO country, as a member of the OECD and other multilateral organizations, it offers us an additional and extremely welcome stage where we can search for the new ideas and bring these ideas closer to the ideals set forth by the Suzhou guidelines and, of course, also to the midterm agenda, which we have coordinated together with the other countries in the past half a year. Well, of course, we see that in this initiative 16+1, there was an extremely positive progress has been made over the couple of years. Well, I do recall, although at that time I was not involved so deeply with our relations with China, we followed the summit, which was back there in Bucharest, and then in Belgrade, and then followed by Suzhou, and then Riga. And we see that indeed there is a score of the projects which are now evolving as projects which will come to a fruition. And Slovenia certainly hopes that will be also part of this agenda with its own initiatives. For the time being, as we also as a member of all these multilateral forums, we do pay a lot of the attention to the global issues, such as the climate change, the environment, and we have floated an initiative which would then sort of unite or get together not only the 16+ China countries, but wider, the issues which are related to the treatment of our environment. So we have gradually settled down that to the initiative which is called the Cooperation on Forestry. And both sides are working now on a concrete program to bring about the second seminar on forestry, which is related about the maintaining the forests as a part of our environment, as well as how to profile the, I would say, sustainable exploitation of the natural resources. And this is a dialogue which I believe has a far-stretching consequences for all the countries involved.
Chinese government features a new strategy called the Silk and the Road Economic Belt Initiative. So how do you think its impact on the Slovenia economy?
Well, thanks for the question. Well, of course, we are looking with a great interest into both of them. One that we call OBOR, One Belt, One Road Initiative, as well as the second one, the Silk Road. Both of them will probably sort of coincide at a certain point in the future. And these ideas have been floated at the beginning as the ideas how to internationalize that part of the Chinese economy which has not been yet exposed to the international competition as fiercely as that part which is related to the Chinese export-oriented industry. And looking for these new ways and potential links with the other countries on that. Of course, one would hardly speculate on, let's say, where is the destination of that One Belt, One Road initiative, or what is the final destination of the Silk Road, which in the ancient times happened to end up in Europe. But of course, now we are talking about the globalized world. We are talking about the number of the new economies which need, I believe, the assistance from China in this new century. And I believe that your government is extremely positively interested in helping, in assisting many of the countries which might and potentially be along the roads of old Silk Road and the One Belt, One Road initiative. I believe it offers an incredibly welcome platform for discussion, not only between China and any of those countries which may find itself on that map, but also on the cooperation amongst the countries themselves.
The upcoming annual two sessions meetings of the MPC and CPPCC will take place next month, and it will for sure bring the whole year's political highlights in China. So, Ambassador, you will be invited to be observing this major political event. What's your expectations?
Well, since I'm a newcomer to a diplomatic corps here in Beijing, of course, a part of my agenda are also all the events which are sort of very important for us as being, I would say, foreign observers of the events which are happening on the domestic political agenda. And just a few weeks ago, I paid a visit to the CPPCC. So I got acquainted and to the history of the organization, the importance that is placed, and I believe that all the deliberations which are ongoing on will lead towards, which is important to us as a foreigners living in this hospitable country, is how the profile of the internationalization of China in the next period will be spelled out in practical guidelines or recommendations, then again for the localities, the provinces in China. And we are looking forward to see that China will have even larger and bigger, more important role in the international affairs. And we believe that many of the deliberations which are now ongoing will lead into that direction.
So, Ambassador, within the next years to come during your presence here, what's your expectation for the Sino-Slovenian relations in terms of cultural exchange, tourism, etc.?
Well, thank you very much for the question. We indeed have an incredibly ambitious agenda on all the points that you have just mentioned. Well, of course, it goes without saying that our interests in China are to develop our economic relations. we are seeing quite a substantial increase in a trade exchange between our two countries. We are seeing gradually also the interest of the Chinese corporations to come to Slovenia in the FDI form, foreign direct investment platform, and I can say they are always welcome to look for their possibilities. And that is also one part of our interest in being involved in a 16+1. Furthermore, we are quite happy to see that a number of the Chinese tourists which they visit Slovenia as a part of the Central and Eastern Europe to come and pay a few days of visits in our country where they can observe our habitat, I would say, the nature and all what the tourists expect to see in Slovenia. And they're of course more welcome. We are seeing that as an incredibly, I would say, welcome development in that. We want to stimulate further exchange in the exchange of the academicians, the students. We do have very vivid cultural exchange of the students in both directions. And I'm quite happy to say that although Slovenia might be a small country with its unique Slovenian language, this language is being taught here at one of your universities, and I can say with the same enthusiasm that also many of the Slovenian students and young people are learning Chinese language. So your Confucius Institute is very active in promoting Chinese language as one part of the studies, and we are promoting the teaching of the Slovenian language here. We are trying to be present here also in a cultural landscape with the exhibitions, hosting some of the music groups and so on. And this would bring about more exchange in that platform that we can call people-to-people contacts. So we'll be working very hard on that platform as well.
All right. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for coming.